How's everybody doing today? Wave at me if you can hear me. Awesome. We'll get started here in just a second.
All right. Hey, everyone. How's it going? Looks like we're all set to kick things off. We have got an amazing crowd here, which is super exciting. But, anyways, this is our third episode of Fluent Talks. So, thank you all for joining. And I think one of the things that we're going to do is let's go back actually, like for anyone who's like joining us here for the first time. I just want to give you like a quick rundown of like what exactly do we do in all of these spaces. So like we host these spaces for you all to just meet our partners or collaborators or contributors and also learn more about the Fluent tech stack. And that's one reason why we have Composable Finance here in the house today. We have Brain Jar. We have also Dino here from the Fluent team. And throughout this space, what we're going to do is we're going to learn about composable finance. We're also going to learn about Picasso network, which kind of sits at the core of Composable's thesis of enabling cross-chain future for DeFi. And we're going to learn more about what does that even mean. And of course, how we are actually partnering together. Um, so this is kind of the agenda for today. But before we start going into the conversations, maybe let's start with a quick round of intros. Brinja, do you want to go first? And then Dino?
Yeah, sure. Hi, I'm Brainjar. Um, I'm the founder of Composable and the Picasso Network. We are extending IBC to every ecosystem. Um, have successfully done so with the Polkadot and Kusama ecosystems. Looking to do the same with Ethereum and Solana soon, and rollups as well. So yeah, excited to be talking about Rollup IBC today.
Yeah. Hey, welcome. So I'm Dino. I'm one of the co-founders of Fluent. And for those who are new, Fluent is bringing WASM, specifically ZK WASM, to Ethereum. And we see a vision of many kind of roll-ups of all different shapes and sizes proliferating on top of Ethereum. And clearly, these roll-ups need to communicate and compose between each other. So very excited to be partnering up with Composable.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah. And I think just talking about Composable, I personally feel like it's one of the most underrated tech out there. And I feel like more people should be talking about this. But, anyways, like I think people know you guys for how you sit in between, um, I would say like two of the major multi chain ecosystems, and that's like Cosmos and Polkadot, and how you're bridging Cosmos to Polkadot using the IBC, right? But just to set the stage, I feel like we have to like go back to the basics and understand some moving parts here. So my first question would be for Brainjar, if you can say for someone on the sidelines of these ecosystems or someone who's an outsider interested in learning the high levels of what IBC is, can you define what IBC is, or maybe more so, why do we actually need this inter blockchain communication layer? Like what
Yeah,
problem does it solve for?
yeah, sure. So, um, this whole thing came about, Composable. We started Composable with the vision of um, really trying to serve users. Um, Everything is still really difficult to do on chain. I think most people that do things in the sort of crypto ecosystem still heavily use sexes. DEX volume has definitely increased over the past couple of years, but still, like the average person, when you ask them, hey, are you into crypto? And they say no. Like the first thing that that we onboard them to is probably a SEX, whether it's like Coinbase, Binance, etc. And so because there wasn't this super app that exists, and still there is no super app that exists that makes things easy to traverse multiple different ecosystems, that was kind of the mission that we set on a few years back. And in doing so, we quickly realized, also me as a user, I've been rugged on Wormhole, and pretty much every bridge that's been exploited, I've lost funds there. So as like a power user of the ecosystem, of all these different ecosystems, I realized that there was a necessity to sort of introduce trust minimized bridging to the world. And we stumbled upon IBC because it's been doing, billions of dollars of volume within the Cosmos ecosystem for quite so many years, and it was never actually extended to other ecosystems. So how IBC actually differentiates is, instead of there being like a centralized set of validators or multi-sig signers like Layer 0, Axelar, Wormhole, all of these major bridging providers, IBC introduces, light client verification on both sides. So chain A runs a light client of chain B, and chain B runs a light client of chain A. And there's a relayer in between that simply relays proofs. There's no permissioning. There's none of that mumbo jumbo that people try to say is some sort of decentralized bridge. Anything that is like an N of M signer is simply just a fancy word for multi-sig. So we said, okay, let's expand IBC to other ecosystems. The first ecosystem we decided to do this with was Polkadot and Kusama, because there had been some attempts to do this in the past, and actually the ICF's original charter was to find ways to actually connect these two ecosystems. So it seemed like a logical place for us to start and expand, IBC Go, and build a brand new relayer, and really sort of drill into all these different concrete components that simply didn't exist to expand IBC to multiple ecosystems. So we did that for about a year and a half. We launched the connection to Kusama and Polkadot, which is like the first actual example, no bullshit, like IBC outside of Cosmos launch. And we also did the same between Kusama and Polkadot. So at this point in the game, we consider ourselves to be like, the team that will continue to productionize cross ecosystem IBC, and hoping to do the same with Ethereum, Solana, and these other major ecosystems. I think there's been a lot of misconceptions about IBC, that it's like very expensive, that it's difficult to implement. I think it is very difficult to implement, but once you've done it and actually know how to put these things in production, there's a big difference between, saying that you're going to do something and actually doing it. So yeah, it's a testament to the sort of relentless shipping that our team has done over the past year, and hoping to do so in 2024.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's kind of one reason why I'm super bullish into this. I mean, we have seen that there's um we don't see I mean we don't see that much of trustless bridges these days. So I feel like introduction of trustlessness into bridging, I feel like that's like a game changer, especially when you add the composability part, because all these ecosystem are fragmented, all the dapps, and within even like one ecosystem it's just fragmented, and the user experience just keeps on um, yeah, it's kind of like bad. So it also solves for the composability part, which is super great. And I think from there, the natural question to ask would be, what composable finance do? And just because we've mentioned, and the Picasso network, the channel has also joined us. Like, how does Picasso network helps with the goals of composable? Like, how do you define these two things within one stack?
Yeah, sure. So we essentially, similar to a NOMA and NAMADA structure, we have Picasso and Composable. The Picasso network is 100% focused on cross-ecosystem IBC. It is an L1 Cosmos chain and also a Kusama parachain that facilitates cross-ecosystem IBC. The token is listed on Osmosis and a couple other locations, and essentially that token accrues revenue from cross-ecosystem IBC, whereas Composable is kind of this layer on top. So, this vision of this super app that allows people to do things on these multiple different chains. How do you actually make it so that all these different components synchronize with one another, and how can you create valuable order flow between these different ecosystems, and how can we hopefully get to a place where this order flow is actually valuable to users and to other ecosystem participants, so we can introduce this kind of like Robinhood-esque product. So I'd say like in the coming weeks, as there are more and more developments on the Picasso side with additional integrations, etc., you'll start to see the sort of beginnings of what this super app is going to look like, and I think that's when things will really begin to click for what is the usage of Composable versus Picasso.
Love that. Yeah, I think I'm super excited for the super app to go live. So I guess waiting. But so you mentioned that you're entering into the Ethereum ecosystem, also like Solana. And if I'm not wrong, I think you're in production with Ethereum, right? So I can like go on right now and bridge between um, Cosmos to Sepolia, I think.
To Gorley, yeah.
Okay, got it. Awesome.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
this week we. Mm-hmm.
yeah, I was just gonna say,
Yeah.
so yes, so it's deployed on Gorley, and then like on the Solana front, we have to launch these like restaking vaults. We introduced like some sort of team staking competition to bootstrap these vaults, but yeah, there's going to be more information on Solana as it comes.
Perfect. So this week we actually announced the partnership between Fluent and Composable Finance. And I would love if Dino can give a quick rundown or like insights into this partnership.
Yeah, for sure. So, like Branjo was saying, I mean, I think both projects have kind of very, you know, large design spaces and what you can do with them between kind of like Composable and Picasso and the different kind of like combinations that we could partner. On the other side, Fluent as the general purpose L2 plus Fluent base, which lets you kind of spin up other, we call them sovereign apps, but like app specific rollups or kind of L3s on the Fluent network as well. I mean, there's like a ton more flexibility there too, and a ton of ways all of these things can kind of compose together. So we do see like a lot of opportunities with Composable. I think one thing that is just principally going to be really important is as the Fluent ecosystem gets kind of built out more and more, and there are kind of like more app specific designs, and you need to kind of like send not only even assets but just like arbitrary message passing across these different rollups and to other ecosystems. It'll be important to have something that's like tried and true. Like, I think one beautiful thing about IBC is that it's battle tested, and it's honestly like a known brand at this point. So it makes perfect sense to be able to kind of like leverage that and bring it into the Ethereum ecosystem. And so there's a bunch of different ways that we can partner with Composable. I mean, looking at it through the kind of like intent based framework that they're building, I think some low hanging fruit, since we are on testnet right now, is to basically make um, Fluent kind of one of like the execution environments for the intent settlement. So if there's some app on Fluent that has kind of the best price for a certain trade, and a user is using kind of the Composable system to execute to express those intents, well, that can be mapped to execution for that trade on kind of the Fluent general purpose L2. Like that's just one super simple base case that we can get started with, but there's actually like a number of different things that I think we can do concerning the Fluent based framework. I don't know, Brainjar, if it's too early to kind of like talk through some of those ideas, but I wanted to just start off with kind of like the base case. There's a lot possible though.
Yeah, I mean, I think primarily like to like the first thing is all these rollups are launching within the Ethereum ecosystem. I think Fluent is one of the most exciting ones simply because like this really allows any having ZK WASM on Ethereum is not only a massive use case for just crypto in general, but for like non-crypto use cases. I mean, the entire internet is built on WASM, and so having this roll up on Ethereum that has all these different applications, both you know DeFi and potentially just real world applications, I think is massive. But then understanding how do you get these things to communicate with Arbitrum, with Solana, with all these different ecosystems is a challenge. And so I think like IBC is the very obvious, like if you can have IBC as the way for communication between the Fluent rollup and say Eclipse or something like this, facilitated by us, um, that's a huge step forward for the ecosystem as a whole.
Yeah, and just to kind of build on that quickly, when you think about the current state of things, right? I mean, mostly it's kind of mostly DeFi centric stuff, and most of the time when I mean, bridging has been hugely challenging across different ecosystems, no matter what. But like to the extent that we've been able to solve it, for the most part, it's been kind of like asset bridging and messaging just for those assets. But think about where we want to head, and as Brainjar referred to, want to we do want to enable kind of like much a much wider set of use cases across the web, and all types of developers building things around games, social, just consumer experiences that are built on blockchain rails, things that are browser based. Like there's the design space is absolutely boundless, and you start to get into a scenario where you're not just kind of bridging assets, but you're doing kind of like arbitrary message passing. And just think of the absolute clusterfuck that can happen across different rollups and different ecosystems if that's not done correctly. And so, I mean, it makes perfect sense to use something that as kind of hardened as IBC. So anyway, just to add some more color to it. Sorry for the language.
No, I think that was amazing to understand like how both of these teams can potentially work together. I think one of the things that I want to understand is I mean not one but like two things. Like what kind of benefits will this joint effort would be providing for first the DeFi users itself in terms of experience, in terms of maybe the security of the assets, and the second is how would this benefit developers building on Fluent or building on Composable Finance or even like Picasso Network?
Yeah, I mean, so like the first thing is when you connect an ecosystem through IBC to us, you get several ecosystems for free. So Fluent users on the rollup will instantly have connectivity to Ethereum, Solana, Cosmos, Polkadot. Nobody else can say that. And that also is very important to us to differentiate ourselves from centralized bridging infrastructures as well. Things like Wormhole are limited, things like Axelar, things like Layer Zero are also limited, but we think with this coverage, we can definitely be competitive within the trusted bridging landscape. So that's like the first thing. And then second thing is, having this live from the jump, there won't be a bunch of liquidity fragmentation. So, typically what happens is when you connect an ecosystem through IBC, you have to now compete with the existing trusted bridging infrastructures that exist. And that results in, 4 or 5 different types of USDT, USDC, ETH, and that's just like massive liquidity fragmentation. But if new rollups like Fluent can pop up and instantly begin offering this as a interoperability standard from day one as the kind of canonical path, I think it's very compelling for users so that there isn't this fragmentation problem. So yeah, that's just my 2 cents.
Dino, do you want to add something?
No, I mean, I think he nailed it. It really does start with kind of unifying liquidity across different ecosystems, and just super, super important.
Awesome. We are getting some requests from people. Maybe they might have like a lot of questions. So I think we can start getting them up on the stage. So if anyone here has any questions, feel free to request us, or feel free to drop your questions in our Discord channel as well as in the comments. We're going to read that, all of these. And while you do that, we have one question from the audience. And they're asking that in the context of cross-chain development, how can asset and security management be effectively addressed, particularly when you are dealing with multiple blockchains? I think that's for Brainjar, maybe.
Yeah, so I think IBC's trust assumptions is it's only as powerful as the weakest link. And so, if you're trying to interact with a chain that has very little security, like it can be 51% attacked with, a few $1,000s, then that's not necessarily the best frame, chain that you want to interact with, just like generally, but also from a development perspective, right? And so typically, like, we try to connect to ecosystems that have quite a bit of security that allows for the ability to do these like more robust, interesting cross-chain applications. These include, Ethereum. These include eigenlayer secured rollups. These could include, ICS chains like Stride and Neutron. These include applications on Solana. So I think like new chains that pop up, for instance, any new L1 or any new L2, like it's important that there's a lot of staked security available, even if it's powered through restaked assets, in order to not break this like the quality of security you have within the entire sort of cross-chain ecosystem.
Right. I think that might answer the question. We have Juice up here. Do you have any questions? Feel free to ask it away.
Yes. Can you hear me, guys?
Yeah.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. First of all, would like to congratulate the whole team of Composable and Picasso team. I think you guys are doing a great job. And I have 2 questions. One is, when would the Picasso token be available to the Phantom wallet in Solana? I know you guys are working on the integration. And the second question is, if there's any alpha that you can give us, if there's any plan of listing the Picasso token in any exchange and anytime soon in 2024. Thank you.
Yeah, so basically, Pika, like, we put up a proposal. It was approved by the community to deploy Pika on Solana. All I can really say there is like the community voted yes, so it is definitely coming. However, it makes sense to do so, in synchronicity with the actual IBC connection going live. So that's like what I can say there. And then, yeah, there is obviously plans to have Pika on Jupiter, Pika on Uniswap, and you know, those things again will come as the IBC connections you know, happen.
Thank you very much
Awesome.
for your answer.
Awesome. Thanks for asking the question. If we don't have any more questions or anyone requesting, I feel like we can wrap it up. We are almost coming up on time. But yeah, any closing remarks, Brinjar, Dino?
Actually, I had a couple questions, or just would love to kind of like hear Branger talk through the Mantis a little bit more. That's something, been hearing about composables like IBC efforts for quite a while now. You guys are definitely a very established kind of brand in the space. But over the past, I'll say like half a year, we start to see kind of this intense buzzword pop up. And I know, Branger, you and I talked a little bit about how we could work together on that front. But could you maybe like help ground people's thinking in this intense stuff? I know you guys have Mantis going on, and you kind of drew the parallel to kind of a Noma Namada. Like, how should people think about that frontier?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think essentially, like, if you imagine a world in which, you know, say you want to buy an ENS on Ethereum and also buy, you know, a dot sol situation on Solana, and you want to do these two things at the same time and send them to your grandmother, that's probably going to take you like 40 minutes or something, or probably longer, to just get the assets in the right place, to bridge, to execute these purchases, and then to finally send them to, you know, whatever your grandmother has access to, right? So Mantis is a way to address this. I call it sort of time to execution, not in the sort of blockchain sense, but like in the sort of when you translate from having a thought in your brain to actually executing something on chain. This period of time is still massive, and you know, is like, can be hours, especially when you think about, imagine you know, right now, you know, the market's heating up, you have all these different places you're farming, etc. Like, it's really a nightmare to just manage all these things. And then on top of that, it's there's a lot of overlap in what people do on chain. And oftentimes, you know, you see Reddit forums of like, hey, I want to do such and such thing on chain, how am I able to do this? And you have to read through this Reddit forum to know what to do. And so what Mantis is doing is we're trying to address both of these problems by introducing a super app that essentially is intent based and lets you submit, you know, just simple sentences to do things on multiple chains asynchronously, but also something that allows you to interact with your peers, maybe people you don't even know, right, who have done something that you want to do on chain. If they've already charted out that path for you, that's something you can execute on Mantis. All of this is powered by IBC, so you can sort of see the, you know, how Picasso and sort of Mantis interact with each other, right? So yeah, Mantis is basically going to be this application that allows you to compose what you want to do across multiple different environments. And where we want to get to is, you know, what if you're doing something that is equivalent on multiple chains? Say you're swapping ETH USDC, and you know, there's various prices for this on different chains. If you don't really care where you end up, you should be able to do a chain-agnostic execution, right? Maybe your swap happens on Solana, you don't even actually know that you're on Solana. And so these are all things we hope to bring to life with Mantis. Almost sounds too good to be true, but like, we've been building this stuff for 2 years. So like, and IBC will be the rails for all of that.
Right. No, that's makes a lot of sense. That's awesome. You can easily picture experiences like I think the cross chain ones, the ones that are like very explicitly cross chain. Like I want to lend some dot and borrow some ETH, and like you want to lend like real dot and borrow real ETH, and it's like you don't want to worry about the details underneath, or like you said, if you have like one action that there's a DEX on every single chain, and you want to get the best price for a thing, a certain asset, to just be able to say like to express that high level goal, and you just don't care about the details of how it gets figured out. You just want it to happen under your constraints. So I mean, clearly that's a big part of the future, and we're certainly excited about the possibilities there. And yeah, with I think on several of those components there's opportunities to kind of like work together. So very cool. Yeah, I just wanted to ground people's thinking in some of the intent stuff, because I know that can be a little bit confusing for people.
Yeah, I mean, like, to be honest, intents are just limit orders in most designs, right? Like, everyone keeps saying intent-based dexes, intent-based, bridging, whatever. Like, those are not really intents. Those are just RFQ systems and market makers. Like, when we say intents within the Mantis context, we say, like, it's more like routing. It's more like basically taking what you want to do and turning it into a path that you do on chain. I think that's going to be the biggest, differentiating factor between us and situations like Uniswap X, as an example. Like, we're not just trying to send users to market makers. We're trying to keep users on chain, but have them do things within these different environments.
Amazing. Yeah, I think that gives people a pretty good kind of baseline understanding. So I'll ping it over to you, Krinza. I don't know if there were more questions or if you wanted to wrap it up or what.
Yeah, I think we are good from that side. But I feel like just hearing about the conversation about Mentis, I feel like there's like more things to be excited about, and I'm like super excited about like just for the 2024 and like the years ahead, and like where this ecosystem is gonna end up being. But thank you all for joining. If you have any questions after this call or after the session, feel free to reach out to any of us. Feel free to reach out to Composable Finance team, to Picasso Network, to Fluent as well. Drop You can also like drop by in our Discord channels. Feel free to DM us anyway as well. And we're gonna make sure that we keep on doing these spaces. So keep showing up. Otherwise, thanks, Brainja. Thanks, Dino, for joining us.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Awesome. Bye.
Bye, everyone.